everybody. Welcome to the next episode of Kelly's Quest. I am here today with Karleigh Webb, a journalist, an advocate, an athlete, everything that I would love to be in life. She is. She represents all of that. And I am so happy for you to be here on the show with me, Karleigh. So, first of all, we can talk sports because just like you, I consider myself an athlete. And I know as a trans athlete myself, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now that a lot of it is bad, but every once in a while there's glimmers of beauty that happens in our communities for the support. And so I want to look at both sides of that topic, and then let's just talk about life and sports in general. So thank you so much for being here on the show with me. And if you could just tell me a little bit about your career as a journalist and your athletic skill set that you love. What sports do you like? I would appreciate it.
Well, first, just me as a journalist. My name is Karleigh. My name is Karleigh Chardonnay Webb. I've been a working journalist for 30 years. I graduated from the Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern University. I'm going to give Purple and White their shout out right now. I'm going to give them gotta give them their love. That's right. Give them their flowers. And after I graduated from Northwestern in 1993, I shopped my resume tape around, and after shopping around a lot of markets, especially in the Midwest where I grew up originally, I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska, I found my first landing spot in Omaha, Nebraska at the Fox affiliate in Omaha. I was an editor for what was then known as the 9 o'clock news, Central Time. And it's Central Time. So I was an editor for 9 months, and then I had an opportunity weekend sports anchor, and I was given a trial weekend. News director, wonderful mentor, no longer with us except in spirit, Bradley Gonzalez, said, look, I'm going to give you a weekend. I'm going to give you this weekend. It was Labor Day weekend. He says, if you stink, not only will you not be my weekend sports anchor, I will fire you entirely. I don't know if he was serious, but at that time, I am a 23-year-old. I'm 23 years old, wet behind the ears in this business. It was my first gig. Didn't want to lose it. I didn't stink that weekend. In fact, the first night was Friday Night Football. My first broadcast, September 4th, 1994, was high school football. And that is a rite of passage for local sports anchors. You have to do that at least once in your life. You have to, and no matter where it is in this country, I don't care what state it's in, on Friday night high school football, it's thing. It's thing. Whether it's as big as Texas or small as Rhode Island, it's still thing. It's thing everywhere. It's thing. And I had a lot of fun with it. I was an anchor. I was a reporter anchor at that station for 4 years. And then when that station had some managerial changes and it looks like people were going to be shuffling in and out, I had a friend who said, hey, have you thought about, there's this producer gig at ESPN open. Do you want to consider it? So I went for it. I ended up taking it. And at that time in my life, it was the move I needed to make. I don't regret it because at that time in my life, I'm 27 years old. I figured, why not? It's time to fly and be on your own and see something different. I'm, as our friends in Australia call it, going a walkabout. So I went on my walkabout, and I'm still in some ways on that walkabout. I was a field and segment producer at ESPN for 18 years. I immensely enjoy working at the Worldwide Leader. I learned a lot. But one of the things about this business is, this business is defined many ways by the bottom line, and the bottom line in 2017, according to the parent company of ESPN, Walt Disney, we had to jettison people, and I was one of the people who was jettisoned in mass layoffs. I freelanced for a while, knocked around, and along the way, I was finding my truth around that time anyway.
Okay.
So I was exploring my truth around that for those last 5-6 years I was there anyway. I started realizing that, you know what? There's a reason why, as much as you tried to be the dude, you weren't the dude growing up because you weren't one. So I was looking into all that. And then in 2017, in fact, the day I got laid off was the same day I decided, the next job I walk into, I'm going to walk into it authentically. And that's where Trans Lifeline came in. 2 years after the layoffs, I was doing a lot of freelancing. I was trying to at least salvage a career in broadcast journalism. I was trying, but during that time, I also was volunteering at Trans Lifeline, and the head of the hotline staff said, "Would you, you're kind of good at this. We've noticed you. Would you like to get paid to do it?" So I joined as the staff operator. That was in 2019. It was a part-time gig, but it was enough to keep the lights on. And in 2022, they said, "You know what? We think the world of you, and we'd like to offer you a full-time job, helping train people like yourself to do this work." In addition to a lot of other things. I mean, Trans Lifeline is a small org. We all do a little bit of everything, but the point is, it's been an excellent second act. And that same year I started at Trans Lifeline as staff. I was given the opportunity thanks to a dear friend and mentor, Dawn Ennis, who at the time was managing editor at Outsports. And she was like, "Hey, how would you like to write sports again? Make a little money doing it." I was like, "Okay." And in June 2019, I started at Outsports. I've been there ever since. So look at how everything comes full circle. Getting laid off, but also being able to but also taking that next step and exploring who you are after a lifetime of trying to bury it and a lifetime of knowing something doesn't fit right, but not knowing how it doesn't fit right. To have the opportunity to, along the way, find what's been a labor of love for me working at Trans Lifeline and reigniting my passion for the craft of journalism and how sports plays into that, and to have opportunities to tell stories about LGBTQ communities, queer communities, trans communities. That's just been a beautiful, happy bonus. So here's how I got here.
That is a heck of a journey. And it made me think as you were saying that. So at the beginning of your journey, you were presenting as someone that wasn't quite your authentic self. Karleigh Chardonnay Webb was there, and I'm sure she was leaking her beautiful self out all the time. But now that you have embraced your authentic self, have you noticed your writing style? Has it changed because of the way you approach this? That's just something I was just thinking of. Like, I know for me, the way I saw the world once I affirmed my authentic self and the way I approached the world and I discussed the world with other people changed. Did that happen with you in your writing styles?
Yes, definitely.
That is amazing.
It definitely changed.
And that is amazing. And now Trans Lifeline, for people that don't know what that is, to me, that sounds like a pivotal point in your life because you had to be around affirming people that cared for you as Karleigh Chardonnay Webb. So can you kind of give people an idea of what Trans Lifeline is so that in case they need it right now?
Yes, Trans Lifeline is North America's only helpline that was started by trans people. It is 100% manned by trans people, and it works through things through a very trans lens and an abolitionist lens. And those are things that do mean a lot to me. Helping our community means a great deal. So, and now more than ever in these times that we're living in, I know we're going to delve into that in detail. If you feel that you can't, if you feel that you're at the end, we're there to help you tie that knot so you can hang on. We're here to help you do it. That's what we're here to be there to listen. We're there to be there for you. So if you are a trans person watching this show, I'm going to do the shameless plug right now. If you are a trans person watching this, and if what you're seeing out in the media, out in your life with the Trump administration, if it's wearing on you and you just need to vent and you just need to let off some steam, or if you're looking if there's support that you need, help that you need, resources that you're looking for and can't find, we can help with that. 877-565-8860. That's 877-565-8860. By all means, if you need it, use it. We're here for you.
And
shameless plug.
You can shamelessly plug that all you want, because it's so important right now. Like, even though I am in a solid place, I'm in Massachusetts, there are still times right now that I personally feel very overwhelmed from everything, and I need to step back, and I need my Trans Lifeline to come through for me. So plug it throughout the line, and folks will try to put the link at the bottom of the episode to.
Oh, even in the quote unquote safer areas, there's still pockets, there's still issues. Look at what's happening in Massachusetts right now, where Massachusetts Republicans poison pilled a $1.3 billion spending bill, a public works bill, with anti-trans nonsense, because a few kids in Massachusetts play sports in their schools. I mean, and they're trying to do the same thing where I live in Connecticut. That's one thing that the anti-trans lobby is now effectively trying to chip away at every blue state. Just this, I mean, right now in the state of Washington, their high school sports governing body voted down 2 proposals that would have either eliminated or restricted transgender kids from playing sports in their schools, contingent on a state law which Washington state Republicans, like every other Republicans, trying to pass. That's one thing. What is with the the GOP slogan is transphobia for a strong America. If you've seen me on Transposition Sports, you probably heard that jingle.
Yes.
Because that's what it is. And they are serious and hell bent on this. And I think I understand why. I understand why they are, because they don't have a solution for anything else and they know it. I mean, look what happened with this nonsense with the tariffs. Their foreign policy, they've already proven, is a loser. They have a cabinet which is probably the most inept in American history.
And in
a sane country, we would be impeaching Donald Trump right now for the tariff mess alone. He would be brought up to our Congress, being impeached just on the tariffs already. But he's got to distract as long. But we should have seen the pattern in the first Trump administration, because notice, whenever Donald Trump found himself in a crack, whenever there was a hard spot, something transphobic was sure to follow, because it was a distraction, and it was red meat for his base, and now he's doubling down on it. So that's why they're picking on trans people right now. And it doesn't matter who you are, because Sarah McBride's caught hell. But I will give her credit. And I do want to say this publicly. I was one of those people that criticized Sarah McBride. I'm going to say it. I think I'm going to take a couple steps back on. I take a couple steps back on that, because she has stood steadfast and has done a lot of good work for the people of Delaware and people of this country. Already in a limited time she's been in office, she's put forth legislation that's going to help the average American immensely. She recently stopped a Trump administration attempt to cut federal funding to a program that would seriously impact Delaware. And she led the charge to make the Trump administration walk that back. So no, she's getting it done. Would I like to see her be more forceful on trans issues? Yes, I would. But here's the thing. I'd like to see more Democrats also be forceful. And I would have liked to see the Democratic Party as a party step up when the Republicans tried to mess with her and misgender her and dead name her and all the other and transphobic nonsense they've thrown at her. I'd like to see a Democrat do what that representative from Massachusetts did in that meeting. I'd like to see a Democrat chest up to Nancy Mace and said, "You mess with her, you mess with us."
For me, I moved to Massachusetts from East Tennessee because there was no future for me as an educator in Tennessee as an openly trans woman. I moved up here to Massachusetts, And I thought, I moved 950 miles away from the South. I have moved that far from Tennessee. Massachusetts is an open, welcoming place for me. And then in 2018, I had to go right back to fighting even harder for my rights in this state because they tried to pass this bill to make it to where people could discriminate against me because they felt like it.
I mean, we're always going to have to fight. Tony Benn, the great British parliamentarian, always said that each generation must fight the fights needed to secure democracy, and that's where we are right now. We are fighting the fights to secure democracy. And you've noticed that in American history, we've had to do this, especially in recent American history. We've had to do this again and again and again.
Yep.
I mean, I have relatives who marched with King. I'm marching across my Edmund Pettus Bridge now in 2025.
Yep.
And that's where we're at right now. To me, we are at a 1968 moment. And you remember how turbulent and tumultuous that year was in the history of this country.
Yep.
We're at that point in 2025. Let's not kid ourselves where we are, and we're starting to see it with more of the protests that we're seeing out there, with more. I think people are starting to get it. I just hope they really lock in and really look at how do we bring our communities together to fight for our common interests? How do we learn more about each other so we can better fight for our common interests? Because as a trans person, a lot of people say, well, I'm not concerned about trans issues. Well, you know what? This is just a trans issue. No, everything is a trans issue. Healthcare is a trans issue.
Oh, yeah.
And it's an issue you ought to be cared about, because believe me, they can take bodily autonomy away from me. They can take it away from you.
And women's sports is a trans issue also. Don't let them kid us on that one. They're not trying to protect women's sports.
Oh, no, we already know they're okay. They're talking about protecting women, but supporting a guy who said, grab them, you know where, and has had 34 indictments for fraud and has had to pay people off because he sexually assaulted them.
Yep.
I mean, really, we're Christian. We're good Christian women of America protecting women, and you're backing a guy who is a complete lout.
Yep.
Think about that. Let's really think about who we're backing here. If you're talking about protecting women, believe me, supporting Donald Trump and thinking that he's going to fight to protect women is kind of like tying for fifth.
Oh, yes. That's a very good segue into Riley Gaines and all of these women that are all of a sudden trying to somehow or another make it look like the reason that they can't compete at an elite level is because there was a trans woman there and that caused this to not happen. When in fact, Riley Gaines tied for 5th place in a race against Leah Thomas that she wasn't going to win whether Leah Thomas was there or not. Nothing was going to happen from it with her. And the same thing happened with Natalie Ryan just a couple of weeks ago in that fencer. They said, we're not going to go play in this tournament because there's a trans person in it. That woman that said that in the disc golf tournament, she wasn't going to win. Natalie didn't even come in the top 10, I don't think, in that tournament. It's showboating for money. That's how I look at it. It's showboating for money. How can
and just to know, I want to send a direct shout out to Natalie Ryan. Natalie, anytime you want to get your point across, you come on Transposition Sports. My couch, my forum is always open to you. Always. Natalie Ryan, there is a group of trans people who have shown so much unflappable grace and courage. And Natalie Ryan has been one of those. Yep. And I want to give Natalie Ryan her flowers right now, because she's had to put up with stuff. Natalie Ryan has had to put up with it. This is how bad the nonsense is, the thing she's had to put up with. She's had to put over these last 3 years. Natalie Ryan got jumped on because she won a couple tournaments a few years ago. In a year where the women's tour in professional disc golf was dominated by one player who won 11 tournaments, including 2 of the biggest majors in the sport in the same year. But I noticed no one was talking about let's ban Kristen Tatar. No one was talking about that. And I look at all these people who have signed up with the group I call Karens Against Women's Sports, because they don't really care about women's
No,
sports.
do
They're
not.
just here for transphobia. And I think, and that's something I want people to stick. Whenever you hear the word independent council and women know that Icons women thing, call them Karens Against Women's Sports. Call them what they are.
Yep.
And call those people, call them all call them out for the Karens that they are and the transphobes that they are. Let's call them they're bigots, because that's who they are. Riley Gaines has lied to you and built a career off of it.
Yep.
And built a revenue stream off of it. And now she's working with another person, and Jennifer Say, who has decided, I'm going to make transphobia a marketing scheme, and I'm going to make it a revenue stream for me. That's all that anti-trans group LARPing as a clothing line, XXXY Athletics, that's all that is. That's all that is. And I think that media, especially as a member of the Fourth Estate, I'm saying when it comes to trans rights, the Fourth Estate has ceded all the ground to groups like Outkick and Breitbart and the Daily Wire. And that has been detrimental not only to transgender Americans, it's been detrimental to a cornerstone of American democracy, which is a press that's actually giving you the news. By ceding them that ground, most people are believing nonsense they shouldn't be buying into, because they're the only people with the microphone. Outside of a few outlets like Outsports, Jim Baczynski and Sid Ziegler have been on the case. But when you have all these groups that constantly beat this drum, and Natalie Ryan wins a tournament before Natalie Ryan can even get the winner's check, Outkick is already saying, male wins women's disc golf tournament. They're already out there with the nonsense before she even grabs the check. And nobody in mainstream media is willing to touch this issue. As we saw, with the exception of the San Francisco Chronicle, who really got into the derma of what was happening at San Jose State last fall with volleyball? Who really got deep under the derma? And one of the reasons why they did get deep in the derma and did some foul reporting is because there was a trans person in the room. In fact, the trans person in the room was the trans person at the head of the room in Christina Carl. Christina, love you. Executive sports editor at the San Francisco Chronicle. Probably the most powerful trans person in American journalism. And you see that, and that in itself is another thing we could talk about. Mm-hmm. Trans people are not in the room where it happens. And that's what we're going to need, whether it's, especially with the sports issue, we have to be in the room where it happens. We got to be in a room where decisions get made, because too many decisions get made without talking to any trans people who are involved in it.
And they don't want us there to begin with, because it's just like somehow or another, we got blamed for Trump winning the election.
No, that
few of us there are. There's a representative right here in Massachusetts, Senator
Seth Moulton
said, if it's all about the trans people, that's why we lost.
No, it's all about the fact that you don't have don't blame me because you couldn't find a compelling vision for people to vote for you.
Yep.
Don't blame me because Kamala Harris was a resume and a nice suit, but nothing else there. And the real sad thing is, you should have beaten Trump by 4 touchdowns. And you had the lines to do it. When Tim Walz said these people are weird, you should have been hitting them with that every day. And it was working.
Yep.
And you could have used that to sell the proposal and said they don't have a plan. They're trying to scare you and demonize people because they don't have a plan, but we do. You had a hopeful message, and then you decided to change that because you had to court Dick Cheney. Really? And you're going to blame me for that?
It's
really? Come on. You're going to blame. I am tired of everyone blaming trans people who just want to live their lives for this, for the fact that cis people couldn't stand in and fight. And that's the real of it. Don't and the worst thing is you have trans people selling this nonsense. There are trans people who actually say Leah Thomas hurt us. Leah Thomas hurt hurt the cause of trans rights. How? By winning a swim race? Excellence never. That would be like saying Jackie Robinson hurt black people by stepping in with the Brooklyn Dodgers in '47. And you're not going to make that sale with me. You're not. You're just not. You're not going to make that sale. The fact of the matter is, you have a lot of people that are scapegoating marginalized communities for the fact that the way things are working, the math ain't mathing.
Yep.
The math ain't mathing. Did writing down on me lower your egg prices? I ain't seen it yet. And believe me, I buy eggs at the store. Contrary to popular belief, trans people buy eggs at the store too.
I think we do everything contrary to popular belief. Like apparently,
oh yeah, like like
we don't even exist, and yet every day I go to work, I exist. Every day I go spend my money somewhere, I exist. Every day I go play disc golf. I was at a disc golf tournament this past weekend, Karleigh, and 75 women were at this tournament. So you've got Natalie Ryan at this elite level that people are just hating on. Like, from what I understand, there's some list out there of every time a trans woman is taken a medal away from a cis.
You're talking about that. You're talking about that nonsense like shewon.org.
Yes.
First off, let's tell you. First off, if you are going to that, understand this is how much they're lying to you, because the fact is they are looking at stuff. They're finding every little obscure thing they can find. And then what they're saying is, oh, if you won, then you took away medals from this many people. You're taking away. John Oliver said it best. They're severely putting the thumb on the scale. But it's even more than that. They're blatantly lying.
Yep.
I looked at the She Won list. Most of that list is highly inaccurate, which is what transphobes do. It's part of the transphobes playbook. Transphobes deal in lies of omission. Professional transphobes, I should say, deal heavily in lies of omission. They don't give you the whole story. They're not going to give you the whole story.
They can't, because
they will. And that's the thing. They know they're lying to you, but they are willing to bet that you don't know. In a lot of cases, in a lot of sports, the average person doesn't know. The average person does not know the real scope of how much they're being duped and how much they're selling you something, because the fact is they know that you probably don't follow that sport. People who follow a given sport closely, they can give you the real story.
Yep.
That's why during Leah Thomas, for example, outlets like SwimSwam, which is an outfit of record when it comes to all swimming, especially college swimming. People like Kyle Sockwell, they were saying, now, wait a minute. And these are people who are vested in learning in their particular sport. They said, wait a minute, that's not true. That's not true. They were able to debunk the lies. But here's the thing. By the time, they say a lie gets around the world before the truth can tie your shoes, right? Yep. That's the situation that you have. That's why sports transphobia works so effectively, because no matter what obscure thing they can find, they can blow it out there and make you think this is a full-blown controversy and make you care about it. And they know that they're embellishing it to make you care about it. They know they're lying to you, but they're betting that you don't know. For example, how many people knew Natalie Ryan won a golf tournament? How many won a disc golf tournament back in 22? How many people knew that Kristen Tatar won 11 tournaments that year? How many people knew that two of the disc golfers that were working with Icons won more tournaments that same year that they're crying about Natalie Ryan than Natalie did? I mean, let's really look at this. I mean, the only way that you knew the facts was that Natalie was willing to fight to get them out there.
Yep. And disc golf, for the people out there, you've followed my show enough, you know about disc golf. But I started playing disc golf, Karleigh, in 1991. And it was a bunch of, the people that play disc golf are quirky. We are not, especially in 91, we were not mainstream society whatsoever. We were those people that happened to be unemployed at that time. So we had to go find something to do to keep our health up, to keep our sanity up. Oh, let's go hike in the woods. What's this frisbee being thrown? Let's go throw it with these people. It was people that played ultimate. It was all of these people that didn't fit neatly into society's idea of sports. And sport, like I would tell people I played disc golf, and they'd be, "What the heck is that?" And then I'd explain it to them, and they'd go, "Oh, wait, that's that thing that looks like a chicken fryer that's got the chains hanging. Hang the chicken off of and put the," and that was their level of understanding of the sport, because the sport was started by misfits. And all of a sudden, the misfits that started the sport are no longer, like, I've been playing this sport since 1991, way before Natalie probably was even an inkling in somebody's eye. I've been out here doing this sport, and I've been chased off of disc golf courses as a trans woman. I have also been openly embraced by human beings that once I was chased off of that course, like literally, I had to leave courses twice out of fear for my own safety because of people not liking me being my authentic self. And I quit the sport, but then people in the sport would be like, "No, Kelly, we need you here. Come back to the sport. We love you." And I would go play the sport again because I got this love-hate relationship with disc golf. I love everything that offers me in the world. It offers me the opportunity to go hiking in the woods. It offers me the opportunity to hang out with new people. And more importantly, it offers me the opportunity to watch things fly through the air that shouldn't be able to do the crazy things that humans can make them do. And I love that aspect of it. And every time I got chased off of the course, somebody else came back and said, "Come in, come in." And so I hope that that's what's happening with Natalie right now, is like Ella Hansen was, John Oliver quoted Ella Hansen. Nobody out there in the world knows who Ella Hansen is, but us disc golfers know who she is. And she said, "I'm happy to play against trans athletes. I'm happy to play against any athlete. I just want to be out there and compete and have a good time and play this sport." And somehow or another, it has gotten lost on society that these little bitty 7, 8, 9, 10 middle schoolers, high schoolers that are playing sports, that is a lifeline for them for community growth. It is a lifeline for them for getting oxygen. It's learning how to build community. It's learning how to communicate. It's learning your role in society. It's all of these things that team sports bring to everybody. And somehow or another, they're wanting to exclude trans youth from that opportunity because of, well, I'll let you go with why.
You know why that is. And it's something that I talk about at length, but no one really wants to talk about. And we can use Natalie as an example because Natalie is a textbook example. The fact is, the beef that Natalie Ryan gets has nothing to do with fairness, has nothing to do, it shouldn't have anything to do with safety unless she's randomly flinging a disc at somebody. And that'd be trying deadly disc golf. That'd be a hell of a thing, now wouldn't it?
I wouldn't play it.
The thing is, there's a lot of people who are uncomfortable with Natalie being there. And that just the same way that you got chased off the court. You got chased off a course. It was about the fact that somebody was just uncomfortable with the fact that you were there because you are who you are.
Yep.
And I get it. I get it. I'm pretty sure that there are people who, if they know my tea, they're uncomfortable with me towing a line at a road race or a cycling race. Or they're uncomfortable with me being in pads and cleats and going out there with a group of cisgender women who are sure as hell not uncomfortable with me being there. And that's the other thing people don't understand. Because I noticed that none of these, very rarely, the fact that Ella Hansen got quoted in that way was a good thing.
Yep, I agree.
Because that story is never told. I'm serious. That story is never told. When we hear stories of trans women in sports, and that's another thing. Let's stop saying trans athlete. Let's stop using that term, trans athletes, when we know we're talking about trans women and girls. When we know that's what we're talking about. I'm not saying that the general term shouldn't be used. I'm saying when it's pretty obvious, let's stop using trans athletes as a euphemism because you may just be uncomfortable with saying the word trans women. That's one thing I've noticed even in very liberal and progressive spaces. There are people who would say, well, I believe that trans people have rights, but they can't say the word trans. They can't say the word trans and woman next to each other or trans and girl next to each other. I've noticed that about a lot of people, that they can't say those words. And they need to unpack why that is. And a lot of that's this discomfort. See, we're uncomfortable in general. This society is largely uncomfortable with trans people. And I know cis people who are watching, if it's not about you, don't make it about you. If you are a person who has trans people in your life and you're comfortable with trans people in your life, don't get hot under the collar about what I'm saying right now because it doesn't apply to you. As the late, great Monica Roberts said, if it's not about you, don't make it about you. I'm talking about the people for who it is about, that they are uncomfortable. And there are people, even in those spaces where they say, oh, I'm progressive, I'm liberal, I support the trans community. Whenever you hear that, always ask the critical question. What does that word, what does trans community mean to you? Because a lot of people want to be academic, and they're okay with supporting us as long as it's academic. But the minute it's serious, it's concrete, and it's on your block, and it's in your school, or it's in your household, or your family, then all of a sudden you're a lot. You can't run with that. You get uncomfortable, and that's what we're seeing. And that's the biggest thing in sports to me is the fact that you're uncomfortable with Leah Thomas winning. You're uncomfortable with Natalie Ryan winning. You are uncomfortable with Cece Telfer winning. You may be uncomfortable with Karleigh Webb being a part of her team winning. And the media won't talk to the people who say, we're not only uncomfortable, we support her. I would love to have media do a story, interview my teammates on the ambush. Connecticut ambush, women's tackle football. We have our first game coming up in a few days. And I'm looking forward to it. But I'd like the media to ask them, how do you feel about having a transgender woman on your team? And that team would give me the business. After all, we're a locker room. We're going to make fun. We're going to bust on you.
Right.
We're going to bust on you. That's just a locker room. That's just etiquette of the locker room. We're going to bust on you. That happens. But they would all say, we love having her on the team. She works hard. She plays hard. She's a good player. She's a good teammate. She backs up everybody, and we back her up. When the league that we play for was announcing restrictions on trans women and a ban on us, my team all gathered around me and said, we'll fight along. You're going to fight this. We fight along with you.
And that's how
every team I've ever played for and every sport I've ever been a part of has welcomed me unanimously. I know for a fact my teammates will not drop dime to outkick the way Leah Thomas's did, the way that Blair Fleming's did. By the way, Blair Fleming, San Jose State volleyball, spoke out in New York Times Magazine this past weekend and told her tale. What Blair Fleming went through, what Blair Fleming went through, when I read that article, I was tearing up because that young woman went through hell because that team, because of one person on that team and one assistant coach on that team who decided to let their transphobia override good sense and humanity. And in turn, the school stayed mum about it, NCAA stayed mum about it, and this kid was left to fight alone. Brooke Sluice ought to be ashamed of herself, and so should that coach, Michelle Battier Smoose. They ought to be ashamed of themselves. They should be. Just the same way that a Paula Scanlon, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. You dropped dime on a teammate, and now you're making money off that. Just like Riley Gaines should be ashamed of herself for the libelous statements she's made about Leah Thomas for the last few years. If Leah Thomas has grounds for a libel suit against Riley Gaines, that is how much I don't like what I'm seeing. And it's ugly and it's nasty and it's wrong. And the real sad thing is a lot of people, and this is the unfortunate part of it, the media often, and even the New York Times article, in a small way, was trying to paint Blair Fleming as the villain in this.
I agree.
When she's the victim in it. They tried to paint Leah Thomas as, well, Leah kind of brought it on herself. No. There's some things you don't do. There's things you don't do on a team, and that's one of them. You don't drop dime like that on a team. And there are some things you just don't do out in the world. And Riley Gaines calls herself a Christian. Well, I read that. I'm a devout Christian too. I've washed feet too. I know what that gospel means. And I also know that there's a term in the Bible, bearing false witness. How in the world are you going to go 2 weeks after the NCAAs and said, we don't have a problem with Leah. We didn't have a problem with Leah. Our problem with the NCAA. I support Leah. And then 2 months later talk about she's a 6'4" male with male genitalia. How dare you? How dare you do something? How dare you? And you see, but you know what? And people think this doesn't affect what you're seeing with high school kids, with middle school kids. We have a sitting governor of a state who referred to a 13-year-old transgender girl in middle school as a hulking male. Yes, Patrick Morrissey, governor of West Virginia. I saw you. I have receipts on you. I saw you. I saw you do that. And if I was his Democratic opponent in that election, I would have hit him over the head with that every day. Do you want to vote for a man that will bully your kid? And the Democratic candidate didn't even want to touch it. And no one ever called him out for that. And not a single media source in West Virginia called him out for that. And as a transgender person, and I'll say this right now to you, if anyone ever demeans me because I go out on that field for my team, I'll tell you right now, I will clap back on you hard. I will not let that stand. I will not let you demean me in that way, or anyone in that way. And that's part of the bully pulpit I use. I fully admit, yes, I'm a journalist and I'm an activist, and I don't run from either label. And I don't run from the label trans rights activist either, because I am trans. I will fight for my rights, and that means I have to engage in some activism to secure them.
We can't be.
And that is not a pejorative. And yes, I get very upset about this because it's just wrong. And the worst thing is, this is happening to young people. Remember, a lot of adults booed a kid, booed a teenager just for winning a race. Oregon last year, Ada Gallagher winning a state championship, and people at Hayward Field, this temple for track and field in this country, and people were booing this kid for excellence. Or what you saw in Maine recently, where the police had to come to a high school to protect a high school because there were threats against a high school because one kid who happens to be a transgender girl won a state championship. And a sitting state representative decided, let's out this kid and let's demean someone's kid. And I think that's something you're going to start seeing with a lot of these mama bears and dragon dad. A lot of these affirming parents, they're fed. I've had a chance to meet some. I've had a chance to talk to a lot of parents who affirm their kid. And let me tell you, you do not want to mess with these people. They will fiercely and ferociously protect their young. And I'll say it right now to all the Nancy Mace, I dare you to some affirming parent in South Carolina and say you're a child abuser.
It's blowing my mind that this is even somehow or another. Like, I know quite a few parents of trans youth, a lot of trans girls that I know that are in sports, and they're doing what all girls do. They're out there trying different sports to find the one that they like. They're trying
Mm-hmm.
fencing. They're trying volleyball. They're trying
And
softball.
it's the same thing with trans boys.
And
Same thing.
they're doing the
Same
same
thing with
thing.
non-binary youth, and that's a conversation we really need to have, because the fact of the matter is, this is going to be part of the unit. This young generation is not looking at the whole ideas of gender, the whole ideas of gender identity, the whole ideas of sexual orientation the way that our generation did. They're looking at this very differently, and they have their own views on how it's going to work. And some of those kids are going to play a sport,
I hope
and they
so.
should have the opportunity to do so.
Yep.
And the door should be open. Much love to the Jake Fedorowskis and Cal Calamias of the world for accelerating those discussions. They are necessary discussions, and sports needs to start having them, and they need to start having them now, because these are going to be processes and changes that are not going to happen overnight. They're going to happen over decades.
Yep.
But every second we wait on having these conversations, it's just going to make that process longer, because like it or not, that process is happening, and sport for the future needs to go in this direction. And you were talking about the sports of the misfits, the quote unquote so-called fringe sports. They're the people that are actually above the head of the curve on a lot of this. I mean, and the real sad thing is disc golf could be there, but the PDGA is for whatever reason, the PDGA is too worried about people clapping back at them just because they would stand up for Natalie Ryan. If they decided to stand up for Natalie Ryan, do they know how many more people are going to flock to disc golf because they would do it and stand fast? That's an opportunity.
And what people don't
And you fumbled it because you got scared of Jennifer Say making an ad for her anti-trans group LARPing as a clothing line about you, because Outkick might say something bad about you. You got scared. See, I look at the sports that didn't get scared. Quad ball is standing fast on it. And remember, that's the sport that was originally created in part because of the writings of a certain well-known transphobe.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Quad ball changed its name because it used to be Quidditch. Now it's quad ball because the people who decided to make a league out of it, and they've made a professional league out of it and a collegiate division out of it, they didn't want the connection to J.K. Rowling and they built a forward-thinking inclusion policy. Same thing with Ultimate.
Yep,
Ultimate's done that. Ultimate's done that. Roller derby's done that.
And disc golf.
And that is the direction that a lot of sports are going. For all intents and purposes, even though it's an established sport, when we're talking about women's tackle football, in some ways it's some of the fringe, in some ways, and there's the debates happening in this sport too. And there are the debates and the fights right now. We're fighting over it in the league I play
in. It's crazy.
And
it's just
it is crazy. But the thing is, though, the established sports have decided to just retrench. The NCAA's decision, to me, it doesn't surprise me that Charlie Baker did that, because he was kind of planning to do it all along, but it is frustrating. But it caused a lot of damage.
And here's something.
And the real sad thing, it's needless. And the real sad thing is, it's a decision that they didn't need to make because it wasn't legally binding. It was an executive order. But more importantly, the record, if you chose to stand up for inclusion, the results, the records, all support you overwhelmingly.
Yep.
Overwhelming. There is no scientific, medical, or competitive justification for a blanket ban. None. Yep. And don't give me all the things about there's limited studies and we don't have enough. The studies that we have point to inclusion overwhelmingly. But again, It's that D word, discomfort. We're uncomfortable with the fact that Sadie Schreiner is fast. Track athlete, Division III, third in 200 meters last year. Goes to the Rochester Institute of Technology. Is a graphic. This young woman should have the opportunity to fight for a national championship this year, and I'll say it, she got robbed of it. It's funny. No, who got cheated? She did.
Oh yeah.
Over hearsay. These people talk about, cheat. No, Sadie Schreiner got cheated. She's being cheated out of her opportunity to shine. Out of hearsay and she'd be the first to walk. She could walk you through her process. I had the distinct honor and pleasure of having her on my forum, and she did walk me through her process. And go to my YouTube channel and watch it, because she literally broke down what HRT did to her, how she had to work through that to be the athlete that she is. There's the case right there.
Yeah.
And also and also just on the personal front, one of the best interviews I ever had.
Aww.
But you see, that's it. We're not willing to see her as a person. We see her as an issue, and that's the other part of it. We're not comfortable with the possibility that, for example, that looking at you that you are a person playing disc golf. People want to see you as an issue, or as someone who's going to Karleigh and Natalie Ryan are going to burn down. They're two monsters that are going to burn women's disc golf. Are you kidding me? I mean, I call it the monster movie mentality. And that's what they're selling you. They're trying to sell you this idea that trans people were monsters. We're coming to trans your child. We want to assault you in the bathroom. We want to take your sports and your spaces and all this other stuff away. So they're trying to sell. They're selling people fear, and the real sad thing is people are buying it.
And I just want to say real quick, Karleigh, I think that you have already listed all of the trans women athletes in the NCAA. Like, they make it sound like we're just everywhere, like we're just in every sport. Our hand is in every sport that's ever been invented. We're just ruining all of the sports ever because we're everywhere. I'm pretty sure you just basically listed nearly every single trans woman that's in the NCAA. And
in the NCAA, there's at least 5. Some want to be out, some don't.
Right.
But Charlie Baker is about right. There may be less than 10. As far as ones that I know of directly, we're looking at right now in NCAA competition, right now, active to compete today, 4. Maybe 4 that we know of. Or at least 4 that I know of. There's 4. And in an average year, there's been that many. In the history of in the history of this issue in regards to competition, you've had now 34 total. 34 at the NCAA level total. You've had 45 at any level of collegiate sport in history that we know of. 45 out transgender student athletes, and the majority of those are transgender men.
Yeah.
Let that sink in. Among the first of those were transgender men.
They're just trying to make it sound like we're just, everywhere. And back to my tournament this past weekend, I ended up winning the whole tournament. I did. And then you know what's going to happen next time I go play in a tournament? I may win or I may come in last place, because that's how sports work.
Yeah.
That's how sports happen. You might be your football game coming up this Saturday, correct?
Yes.
Go team. But you might
great game against coming up against the New England Rebellion, a team that has been very supportive. They have players who are trans on their team, and as a team they've been immensely supportive of them. They've been immensely supportive of this time. I'm looking forward to playing against them. I'm looking forward to meeting the sisters who are like me on their team after the game. But
Yes,
during the game, it's a contest. We got to come at each other. You know how it works.
that's how sports
But
work.
after the game, I want us to shake hands, give each other hugs, and say, "Keep pounding, sis." And much respect to the rebellion for standing up. And they've stood up, and they've stood up publicly in the face of some of the nonsense that's happening in New Hampshire.
And the
A
disc
lot of credit, for that.
in the disc golf community this past weekend, they cheered for me when I went up and got my trophy for coming in first place in my age bracket. They did not care. What they cared about was, how am I as a human being? How am I as a person? Do I bring joy? Do I bring competitiveness? Do I bring fair play? I bring all of those things. And next week I might, or next term, I might come in last place. This week you might be lit. You might, whatever position they have you at, you might just be a shining star. And then the next weekend, because it's sports, you might have forgotten to hydrate enough. You might have forgotten to eat that breakfast that you have every day. You're lucky, whatever lucky thing you have, because as an athlete, I've always got something lucky, my good luck charm that I take out there. But there's just as good a chance that I'm going to come in dead last at the next tournament, because that's how sports work. It has nothing to do with me being trans that I won this past weekend. It happened to be that I was hitting my putts. I happened to be able to hit my lines, and every time I hit a tree, I got a good break instead of a bad break.
But you see, this is the way, but these are the discussions that people need to be hearing.
Yep.
Because the fact is that a lot of the misinformation comes out because people don't know us. People don't see us. And I'm willing to talk to anybody who's willing just to listen.
Yep.
And who's willing to come with an open heart and an open mind. I'm willing to ask questions from people who are bringing questions in good faith. Because my attitude has always been, I didn't transition to hide, I transitioned to live. No more, no less. And part of me living is playing this game. Part of me living is playing a game. Part of me living is being out in the world. Part of me living is doing what anyone else would do, which is, you know what, you go to work, you pay go to work, pay taxes, make sure your garbage cans are outside.
All the things.
Say hi to your neighbor once in a while.
Yep.
Go to church, go to church on a Sunday morning, have brunch afterwards.
Live life.
And in the case of me, going dress shopping because I feel like it. And I know that last one probably made certain people uncomfortable. Again, this is really about comfort. This is not about any of these things about the fact that you're different and you scare me because you're different.
Yep.
And the powers that be are selling you that fear. Fear because if they can make you afraid, they can control you. And that's another part of this.
So for the average person, what can they do to help combat this misinformation that's happening? I know we've been speaking about sports primarily, but this misinformation is out there everywhere. So what are some of the ideas that you have for the people that are saying, how can we make sure that Karleigh continues to play football, that Kelly continues to play disc golf, that Natalie can continue going on the tour? What are some of the things you feel that they can do to help?
First thing, people in those communities, talk to the people who are living this in those communities. And again, come with an open heart and open mind and in good faith. Talk to trans people in general. Learn what the facts are, which means you have to get it from the people who's living it.
Yep.
Because look at every Trump administration executive order against trans people. And what's the one thing you find in all of them?
There's a lot, but the one thing is
the one intrinsic thing you can find in all of them is he refuses to use the word transgender. Flat out uses
Flat.
flat out refuses to use that word. And that ought to be a red flag to you. That's the immediate red flag to you. Notice he said keeping it, transgender people out of sports. It was keeping men out of women's sports. Ending mutilation. Think of all the loaded anti-trans terms that were used by these groups. All the loaded terms that were used.
Yep.
That's the first step in them trying to sell you the fear. The way you counteract that fear is being engaged in community with the people that are dealing with this day to day and getting their perspective. Because trust us, trans people, we know our lives and we know the code words. We know when we're being talked about in a pejorative light. We do.
Oh, yes.
And we can decipher that and decode that. And as you get to know people, also you'll get to find information. You'll dig for it. Because the information's there. By having trans people in your circle, you're also going to have the people that support trans people in your circle as well. Don't be afraid to, if you're unsure about trans kids, go to your local PFLAG chapter one day and just talk to parents. Talk to affirming parents and get the facts on them. And one of the biggest facts you're going to learn early on about affirming parents is that the vast majority of affirming parents who stand steadfast with their child struggled at first. Very few. They're trying to sell this as, oh, these parents are trying to push these kids into being. Most of these parents are trying to do everything they could to keep their kids cis, and they will be the first to tell you that. Remember, when reactionary transphobes say, just let kids be kids, what they're really saying is keep kids cis, because the fact of the matter is, when they talk about you're cramming trans down, no, you're cis heteronormative theory, cis heteronormative beliefs, and a cis heteronormative society have been crammed down that kid's throat since the moment that kid came into the world.
Yep.
We don't have the power to cram anything in your throat, down your throat, nor do we want to. I don't want to trans your kid, but believe me, you want to cis an affirming child. That's why you're trying to make affirming your child's gender identity akin to child abuse and making it a criminal law. Because the fact is, you really want to keep kids cis, and if you say it honestly, people will look at you cross-eyed. Because really, at the level, it's about control.
Oh, yes.
It's about control. And that control may extend to something you care about. That's what gets me about groups like Gays Against Groomers. Oh, well, they got you hyped up standing with them on trans people. Notice that they're going after marriage equality. That may be something at least a few of you Gays Against Groomers care about. I'm pretty sure more of you realize do. There's a whole movement dedicated to misinformation, and the best way you counter it is by knowing people. When you know the facts, when you know the facts and still want to give in to misinformation, then you're just a bigot. And I believe that most people aren't. I believe that most people are not bigots. I believe that most people are not transphobic. This society and the way media is organized can make you that way. It'd be hard pressed not to. But the best way to counteract that is by getting to know who the people are that are being targeted and see for yourself.
I played in the Beantown softball league in Boston, which is a queer softball league. And there was maybe 2 trans women, 5 or 6 trans men. And the level of misunderstanding of who we were within the LGBTQ community was mind-numbing to me. I felt like I had to do as much or more advocacy work in that community than I have to do in my own school that I work at on a daily basis as an open and authentic trans woman. And when our own community has these preconceived notions, it's like you said, it's because they've never met me. And I can't tell you how many women and how many queer people have met me and been like, oh, you're just a woman. And they almost sound disappointed because they wanted me to either be a unicorn or Satan. Like there was none of this middle ground to where I'm just a person. I'm a woman that has life. I go do my stuff. I play softball. I fall down when I run to first base because I'm getting at a certain age now, so I had to retire. But it was just it's crazy how many times people are shocked that I'm just a woman. And I'm like, what did you expect me to be?
Well, because no matter what your orientation is or however you identify, cis people are going. If you're cis people tend to cis. Cis people are just going to cis, and sometimes it's just going to happen. But no, I'm with you because a lot of people, there's a lot of misunderstanding because, and again, people go by what they see. And part of it is they don't see us. They've seen caricatures of us.
Yep.
I mean, we're of a certain age, so we remember Max Klinger.
Yes.
We're a certain age. We're a certain age, so we know that. We're a certain age, so we remember the first time most of us saw some trans people was Jerry Springer or Ace Ventura. Those popular images, or The Crying Game, those popular images impacted on people.
Yep.
I'll admit those popular images impacted on me in a certain way at the time because I didn't know any better. Later in life, looking back on it, seeing the journey I've led, those are very cringy to me now. But that's where a good number of our society is at. More recently, RuPaul's Drag Race, and don't get me wrong, I love watching some good drag. I have friends who are performers. I have awesome friends who are performers, and that's where a lot of people's frames of reference are.
Yep.
And the best way to counteract that is by being there. And yes, it is a struggle. Karleigh, it's a struggle. It's a rare time when you don't have to struggle. That's one thing that I've really been grateful to about this football experience I've had the chance to be a part of because I didn't have to explain anything. The greatest fear I had was like that, okay, I'm going to find out these is a bunch of turfy women and this is not going to happen. It was the exact opposite. I have never felt more affirmed in my life than I have been playing football.
That's huge.
That is one of the most affirming spaces that I've been a part of in my life, is being a part of first Reapers Women's Football and now the team that we merged with 3 other teams to become the Connecticut Ambush. When I walk into practice, I'm not the trans person. Oh, people, they know I'm talking about the Trump amongst ourselves. Pardon my French. We talked about the Trump nonsense amongst ourselves. We've talked about these executive orders. We've had these conversations. I have had teammates ask me, how did you get here? Why did you transition? But I'm not the trans woman on the team. I'm Karleigh, or I'm 355, my jersey number. I'm a member of the team. I'm a little hot to the ball, and a little bit over aggressive at times, and I can be kind of a ditz at times. My teammates know that. How many people wear a skirt and a jersey to play flag football? My teammates know that. Yeah, I wear cat ears. I'm on the team bus going to a road game, and I've got the cat ears that light up. Yeah, my teammates know that, and they accept all of it. But at the end of the day, I'm just Karleigh Webb. I'm just another woman on this team. And you know what? I like that. I like the fact that they they know and care about me as a person, and being trans is a part of that, but it's not the end all and be all of that. It's like, we know you're trans, so you play ball, you're a part of this team, we love you as a teammate, let's do this.
Yep.
But they also care for me as an individual, and I care for all of them as individuals and as a collective, as a team. And to me, that's affirming, and that's all. And I can tell you this, that's all we want.
Yep.
All we want is that level of human kindness and decency, simple respect.
You would think it would be simple, wouldn't you?
No,
Kindness.
Nancy Mays. Frankly, Sarah McBride doesn't care if you care for her or agreed with whatever you feel her choice was. But calling her Mr. McBride, not cool. And you can at least not do that. If you can't be kind, you can at least be civil. And that's all we want. You don't have to like us, support us, march with us in a pride parade. Quite frankly, some of you, fine. You don't like, personally, I like my bigotry uncut. If you don't like trans people, just don't try and couch it in academic nonsense. Just say so. Or even more so, be honest with yourself. I'm uncomfortable with you because I don't like the fight. People just need to be honest about it. I've had people be honest. I did a speaking engagement a few years ago where I had a person come up to me and be honest. Kind of like, that middle age, 40s to early 50s dude, bro. New England Patriots sweatshirt on with a hood. I mean, that guy who probably owns the pickup truck came up to me and said, "I just want to tell you something." I'm like, what? Maybe if your father had thrown a football with you once in a while, this wouldn't have happened. I looked at the man, smiled. I crossed my legs, just so. Had this nice skirt outfit on. I looked at him in the eye and said, "Sir, my daddy coached me in Pop Warner football. I was his quarterback for 2 years." He turned 3 different shades of red here and that.
It's that discomfort. It's the fear.
Yeah, it's the fear of, and that's part of it's that discomfort with the fact that, oh my God, I came to you with this stereotype as a gotcha, and you just busted it. And that is a piece of the discomfort. And I think when cisgender people really unpack that, we can really have meaningful discussions. We can really and I'd like to see people really unpack that, because for a lot of people, for a lot of people, acceptance is difficult because of that discomfort, because of that uncomfortable feeling that no, you should and as people unpack that, they're going to find cis hetero patriarchy underneath a lot of it, and that's going to make them feel even more uncomfortable, because you've got to deal with that. I mean, what we're seeing in the UK right now is a good example of that. What we're seeing in the United Kingdom right now, even after they won their point, supposedly.
The UK,
and then imagine considering yourself a feminist, calling yourself a feminist, and then realizing Nigel Farage is coming up to you and saying, "Good job, love." And then you're realizing the Faustian bargain that you made to get this win. And some people are getting ruining that, because they realize they got in bed with the very thing they said they thought they were fighting. And others may not be feeling that way. They want that proximity to patriarchy. But yes, this is all part of, get in the weeds, but that's all part of the unpacking thinking that needs to be done. And some people, they don't want to open that Pandora's box because it may tell them about themselves in a way they don't like.
Right. Exactly.
And to those people, I say, you know what? That's why you need to talk to trans. You need to have more trans people in your life, even more now, because we know that. We know that. We've lived that. We've lived that very Pandora's box. That explains how a person decides to move forward at 46 years of age. In fact, that was part of the reason why I picked the first jersey number I had returning to tackle football. I picked 46 because that was the age I started my transition.
We begin our journey towards authenticity, but our authentic self is always leaking out, even before you.
Oh yes,
it always leaks out. The authentic self always leaks out, and I'm glad that you came to the level of understanding of who you were at 46 to be like, okay, this is how I got to be authentic and true to myself. I owe it to myself. I deserve this. And it brings about a level of love for oneself that I think also makes people afraid because they don't know how to love themselves. And they see us out here not caring what society thinks about us, but living our best life, being authentic and being true to ourselves. And there's a little bit of, oh, I'm not brave enough to do that because what will the neighbor think? What will my family think? What will society think? And we're just sitting here loving ourselves because we finally figured out that loving ourselves and being our authentic self go hand in hand for us. Because me personally, when I affirmed my authentic self, a lot of bad stuff in my life went away. That I was
exactly.
So I think there's a lot of that fear too, and discomfort of seeing someone being their authentic self and being joyous in it.
Well, it's something a good friend of mine talks about a great deal. One of my best friends in the world, Kamora Harrington. She's a Black lesbian queer activist in Connecticut, and she's a person who in many ways set my mindset in a very different place. If I hadn't have gone through and affect her finishing school in many ways, you wouldn't be. I would not be as effective as a person or as an activist or as a journalist without this. She says something that's very profound. She's like, you got to understand something. This is about your liberation. She says, all these things that you're doing right now to better yourself and move yourself forward is about liberation. And that scares people. And the fact that you're striving towards liberation scares people. It scares the people that are afraid of going for liberation, because oftentimes when people are scared of striking out for their own liberation, they try and hold back the people who don't. It's crabs in a barrel, and they're going to look at you and say, how dare you be free? How dare you take your shackles off? How dare you want to be free?
Yep.
And that scares a lot of people. That the idea that you are willing to lose your chain. As being a socialist, they say, workers of the world unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains. Oh. The hardest part of that is just throwing off the chains, because as much as you hate those chains, you become comfortable in them. Because those chains, you know those chains. There's a comfort in them because you know them. There's a familiarity in them because you know them. But what if you cast off your chains, not knowing? What if you cast off those chains and you walk that walk, not knowing the next step in the path, when you can only see a few feet in front of you in time? That's what transition is. You can only see yourself a few feet in the time.
Yep.
You don't know how it's going to turn out. You don't know who you might lose. And that's the one thing people got to understand. You really think I transitioned just so I could go out or walk out and pay to play football? Do you really think I did this just for that? Do you really think I did? You really think I would go through what I've gone through if it's not me losing some friends, losing relatives, becoming a target, having to deal with nonsense like what we're seeing from our government,
Yep.
and dealing with some of the slights that you deal with, dealing with healthcare, dealing with the fear of going into a hospital because you don't know how you're going to be treated if they look at your chart. Being afraid of being in a certain type of store because you don't know if someone clocked you at that moment and it can become an embarrassment, or if someone has a preclusion that, hey, you might be one of those men. That's what we deal with.
It is.
And it's scary. But that leads to the next question. That really gets the people that find familiarity and comfort in having those chains on. Why we do it. Because we understand even with all that, it's better to move forward knowing that than to stay in the place where we were. Because at best we stagnate and we commit suicide slowly, or we do it quickly. But either way, in one way or another, we die a little bit more and we die a little bit faster for having not. And that's what led me to move forward. Because I saw myself as with two choices. I can either go through some things I'll need to go through, but be a lot happier. Or I can just be who I am and be back at the same place I was 20 years later, regretting.
Yep.
And when I looked at the calculus, I said, the regret is something I can't deal with. The slow march to the grave is something I can't deal with. Yeah, I've taken some bumps. I mean, I've gone through some of the rough stuff, and in some ways you still go through it. But I also look at the beauty of the other side. The beauty and that beauty far outweighs that. The beauty of the other side is getting to meet and be friends with someone like yourself.
There's a lot
The
of
beauty is building a beautiful group of queer friends and queer community. That beauty has been the smile that I see on my face every day of my life now. Smiles were forced before I started this journey. Now I can't help not to, even when it gets difficult. Even in the middle of doing burpees and sprints at football practice, I smile through it.
That's just crazy.
Yeah, and that's another thing. This experience in Pads Cleats Sisterhood, this experience, it has been worth it. My life has been worth it. And if you want to know why I transitioned, that's why. Simple as that. I just wanted to live.
Yep.
I just wanted to live, and I did it. And I didn't transition to hide. I transitioned to live. So no, I'm gonna walk out on that football field. All of me. I'm gonna walk out into the world. All of me. Because the fact is, contrary to the belief of this government, no, I do exist. And this is how I exist. And this is how I move through the world. And I think the more people see that, I think more people are going to be willing to unpack that, but they got to see it and have the hard conversation and open that box to unpack it. And while they're at it, stop gatekeeping others from that liberation if they choose to strike out for it.
I feel like there's a level of I always tell my friends, authentic people attract authentic people.
Exactly.
Kind, authentic people attract kind, authentic people.
Mm.
Corrupt, vile, misogynistic, patriarchal, authentic people, and speaking of you, Donald Trump, attract vile, patriarchal, misogynistic, authentic people. Donald Trump, I feel like there's this dichotomy of authenticity taking place. There's the kindness of authenticity, and that's my whole thing: hope and joy and kindness. I try to bring those to my students every day. I work with special needs kids,
Mm.
and every day I try to bring joy to their life. I try to bring hope to their life, and I try to teach them just life skills. I teach life skills. That's what I teach. But they want to come hang out with me because they know that what the person they see in front of them is the person I am. There's no games going on.
Mm.
There's no make believe going on. I'm here. I'm going to be the goofy teacher that I've always been. And that attracts all of the people in my life right now are kind, authentic people. Because unauthentic people or vile, authentic people, they can't be part of my group. They can't roll with us. They can't
Yes.
hang with my
And
kindness and my joy and my.
and I'm gonna tell you, I don't think there's anything authentic about President Trump at all. I don't think there's anything. I would even dare say that I don't necessarily want to psychoanalyze the president, but I really believe when I see him and I see a lot of these professional transphobes, they don't know who they are.
You might be right. You very
They
well might
don't
be
know
right.
who they are, and that's another thing that I notice that plays into that discomfort is that when you see one thing I've noticed that about trans people, the thing I've noticed about myself is I have become confident in who I am
Yep, I know
as a
myself.
person, as a human being. Now, as an athlete, I'll admit I'm working on it because for the first time in my life, I've really had to deal with the fact that no, this is who you are, and having to love that after so long not, and having to reconcile all that. I mean, the people, yeah, I'll admit, estrogen has been one hell of a truth serum
It is. It is.
because you got it, and that's the part that a lot of people don't see the work, the inner work that you do to yourself. If you're serious about healing yourself, and for me, transition's been healing, and everything's been a healing. But when you look at people, when I look at Donald Trump, I see a man who's inauthentic, who's never been authentic. He's always put on an air for a reason. Throughout his public life, especially, I don't even think in his private life who really knows who he is. I see the same from Riley Gaines. I see the same from her. I know one professional transphobe who I really believe is hurting. Martina Navratilova.
Yes.
Martina is saying the very things about me and mine that was said about her 40 years ago when she came out. The way the tabloids treated her, horrible, horrible when she came out. Ironically enough, the way she was being treated made a little 11-year-old me a fan of hers because I didn't like the way she was being treated. Why do people hate her so much when she's such a great player? You got a point where if you rooted against her, I rooted for her. And right now, that same little 11-year-old kid is grieving in some ways because they find out that the person they looked up to doesn't like them. Hurt people do hurt people. She doesn't know who is she if who is she if she's not a transphobe? Because apparently being a tennis legend wasn't enough. Wasn't enough. And again, The very same hurt that was put on her 40 years ago, she's now putting on me. And it's sad. But I see that a lot now. On the other side, what you're talking about is when you strive to be real, the real comes to you. Some of the realest people in my life are on my football team. Owner of the team, she's about as real as you get. Wonderful, wonderful team mom / owner, Colleen Vaserka. Yes, I'm talking to you. Head coach of the team, Tyrone Brees. What you see is what you get. Like the guy, respect the guy. Hell of a coach. All our coaches, Coach Len, Coach Lori Lindo, who's one of the realest people, another real person. Jennifer Garzone. I love her. She's our special teams coach. Love, love, love. Coach Alex, the person who took a wide receiver and built an offensive lineman out of her. Yes, that was me. You took a wide receiver, slot receiver, diva, and you turned her and you're making her an offensive tackle. We're not there yet, but we're going to work on it. Real. And all my teammates, they're about as real as you get. And they accept me just for me being me.
Yep.
At the end of the day, and Kelly, at the end of the day, that's all we want.
Yep.
That's it. We don't want it. We don't want any more in that. And that's the thing. If there's one thing I want to leave people with, is that at the end of the day, trans people just want to move through this world like everyone else. We just want to work and play and laugh and love.
Yep. You can't put it any more concise than that. That's but I do have one last question before we wrap up. So I know you're talking about all of your different positions on the football team that you're played, like you're a multifaceted talent on the team. Do you prefer the offensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball more?
I prefer just playing ball.
There you go.
There's advantages to both. Like, I've learned to love playing on the offensive line because it is the most important position in the sport. And in some ways, when they said, we want you to be a guard this year, at first, I'll admit I balked at it because I was like, wait a minute, guard? Have you looked at me, coach? Do I look like a guard? I'm kind of skinny, coach. Do I look like a guard to you? With this hair? Guard? But I took it as a challenge. And it is the most important part of nothing works without a good offensive line. And my father, when I was a little kid, told me, if you don't block, you don't get the ball. The ball is a reward for doing the dirty work. Blocking is a part of it, and it's just all about helping whatever helps the team. I also play fullback and halfback, like I did last year. I'm kind of partial to fullback. It's the Nebraska girl in me. Because I know the fullback is like a lost art. It's like a dinosaur. You don't see a lot of them anymore. But that lead blocker on a sweep, plowing in on the inside, it's kind of cool. Defense, I play defensive end and a little bit of linebacker. What I like about the defensive end is really the one-to-one challenge of trying to get through a tackle, trying to get through a good, skilled person on the offensive line. To reach a quarterback or reach a running back, that's the challenge. And again, the thing about football, very much like my transition, is one, it's pushed me to consider a lot of avenues I haven't. It's pushed me into a lot of places where I've had to learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. But in sport, you find out that's where the gains happen. That's where victory happens, when you start being comfortable being uncomfortable. So no, this transition experience is related so much to a sporting experience that's been healthy and that's been healing for me. And I'll take that every day.
Here, I agree. And I'm going to wrap up just with a little disc golf story. Karleigh, thank you so much for doing this. This has been very inspirational. And thank you for tweaking my thought process to give me things to consider and think about in different lights, because that's part of the growth process, is to talk within our own community as well. because just like cis people can learn a lot about the trans community talking to trans people can learn a lot about the trans community talking with trans people. And you've given me so much to think about today. And one of the things that struck me when you were talking about football is when I started playing disc golf back in 1991, I stunk at it. Like I was really, really, really bad. I was not.
Sounds like me returning to football. I realized how much I learned, how much I knew was so out of date because it was been 35 years.
Yes. And I stunk at it. And I couldn't get better because of this, my brain. My brain was not in the right place to be a good disc golfer because there's a lot of thought that goes into being a disc golfer. It's more than just athletic skill. It's shape shot. Which disc do I choose? Do I be aggressive here? Do I pull back here? Somehow or another, me affirming my authentic self, and I'm now 60 years old, my 60-year-old authentic self who's been on estrogen for decades would destroy that person that was 25 years old that hadn't affirmed their authentic self. I'm a better disc golfer now than I ever was before I affirmed my authentic self because I'm comfortable with myself. I've got the mindset of, okay, I don't know all the reasons why I'm a better disc golfer now. But if all of this craziness about us having an unfair competitive advantage held true, then Paul Macbeth, all of the famous men disc golfers, they should get on estrogen because it made me a better disc golfer. Maybe it'll help them to become even better too, based on this crazy concept that they have. But they can't explain to me why I'm a better disc golfer now than I was back then. That goes against their concept of how trans women navigate the world. And I'm assuming that trans men, once they started affirming their authentic self, they became better at life too. Like I just became better at life when I affirmed my authentic self. And that lady that took the belt out of the tournament because Natalie was playing, in my opinion, she bailed on that tournament because she got swept up into this transphobic world by people that she listened to that were unable to show love and compassion to her or to Natalie. So she just joined right along and got swept up in it. And now she's out there taking this stance against something that's not even a villain. Taking a stance against Natalie and not playing in that tournament didn't help Natalie. It didn't help her. It didn't help the sport of disc golf. It didn't help anything. It just made her be a little bit of a 15-minute fame person. And she did it, in my opinion, for fame. She did it to get some attention for herself. She did. She knows that she's not, and she knew for a fact that there was no safety issues at that tournament. She knew for a fact that she wasn't competing against Natalie. She should have been competing against the course. You never compete against your competitors in golf. You're always competing against the course. And my guess is she knew she couldn't beat the course, so she had to go try to beat Natalie down. But that's my
feeling on it.
But I so appreciate you coming on the show, Karleigh. This has been fantastic. And once again, thank you so much for giving me a lot to think about because, like I said, I need to continue to grow. Once I stop growing as a person, I can't help other people grow.
Well, I thank you for having me on it, and I thank you for doing what you've done with this platform. And I'm going to say this. You have an open invitation. You come on Transposition Sports, we do this.
We'll do
you have an open invite. Anytime you want.
We'll make it happen, Karleigh. We'll make it happen.
And again, Natalie Ryan, I'm waiting for you.
She needs to get out there. She needs to. Of course, right now she's traveling the country in her van, going from city to city to city, playing in disc golf tournaments.
I know she's got tournaments to win. She's doing her thing, but I'm just letting her know is that whenever you need to talk, we're here. Hey, we have a sports show. I'm gonna one more shameless plug.
Yes.
Every Thursday night, 8 p.m. I'm part of a group called Transpositions News. It is a 2-hour news magazine that we do every week. via YouTube Live where we talk about trans issues and the news about trans people through a lens of trans people. Because we know that viewpoint is sorely lacking.
It is.
And I do a sports segment. And in that segment, I talk about a lot of the issues, but I also strive to get the athletes themselves. I want people to hear from them directly. Who are these people? And in the past year, I've had the opportunity to do some great things, to talk to to get some viewpoints and vantage points out there that aren't that the mainstream media will not give you. I mean, think about it. When they talk about the transport issues, who gets talked about? Who gets talked to? Not trans people. Not trans people. So that's what I strive to do. I strive to talk to trans people. I'm just saying, you have an open invitation, so does Natalie.
I so appreciate everything you're doing for the community. You're such a fighter for us, and it's very much appreciated because it inspires me every time I feel a little bit low on myself, and I'm thinking, what can I do next? I don't feel like I'm doing enough. I'm like, wait a minute, I am doing enough. I'm doing the best I can, and I don't have to do it all because there's Karleigh Chardonnay Webb out there. There's Dr. Marissa Richmond out there. There's Jerry Cannon out there. There's all of these people that have been trailblazers. And I would love to get Sarah McBride on my show. Like, I think that would be just an amazing.
I think you should do it. I would definitely turn in.
But I really do appreciate it. And everybody that's out there, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I hope, just like myself, you have learned some things and taken some things away from this that will inspire you to go battle the misinformation that's out there and to go show kindness and joy and hope in the world. Bye, everybody. Thank you, Karleigh.
Bye. Thank you.